Hello, dear listeners. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite series, Unappreciated Treasure. Enjoy. Chelsea had just helped a stranger with a twisted ankle to her tent. After spending some time drinking and playing her guitar, she woke up disoriented. When and how did I get in here? She muttered to herself. She checked the time. It was 5:30 in the morning. Peeking outside her tent, she saw the handsome stranger still sleeping nearby. Oh my gosh, what happened yesterday with this quiet Gankana? Gankanas were male fairies from Irish mythology, known for their strikingly handsome looks. Chelsea tried to remember the previous night but struggled. All she recalled was opening a bottle of wine and singing together. Her eyes widened in horror as she remembered kissing him. Geez, Chels. How could you kiss a stranger? Are you crazy? What if he's a killer or married? Feeling anxious, she bit her lower lip and cursed herself. Ugh, you're such an idiot, she thought, clutching her head. Taking a deep breath, she quickly packed her things in her rucksack, determined not to leave the injured stranger without saying something. She pulled out a notepad and wrote, Dear Quiet Gankana, I'm sorry for kissing you last night. You can keep my tent, fire essentials, and noodles if you get hungry. I hope your leg gets better. I've left some pain relievers beside this note. Your phone is fully charged as well. Kind regards, Mountain Fairy. With that, she left the note and a bottle of pain relievers, then quietly slipped away. The sun rose, casting a rosy hue across the sky. Its rays filtered through the trees and warmed the stranger's face, stirring him awake. He looked around slowly and winced as he tried to stand, feeling the swelling in his ankle. Hopping on the other leg, he searched for Chelsea but quickly noticed the tent was empty and her rucksack was gone. Was she all just a dream last night or some strange reality? He mumbled. His eyes fell on the note she had left, and after reading it, a small smile crept onto his lips. This girl is truly something else, he scoffed. Remembering how Chelsea had taken care of him, he mused, she must have enjoyed drinking too much last night. As he thought back to how he had helped her into the tent, he recalled how she had clung to him like a koala while whispering in her sleep, Please don't leave me. Feeling a surge of sympathy, he had gently assured her, I'm right here. I won't go anywhere. Once she had fallen into a deep sleep, he carefully peeled her hands off his arm and marveled at her peaceful expression. She looked like a doll, and for a moment he brushed a strand of hair from her face. As he stepped out of the tent, he realized he had to take care of his injured ankle. He glanced at his phone, which still needed a charge, and retrieved a small tree branch, using it to sketch a diagram in the dirt. With a compass in hand, he checked his direction before pulling out his phone to dial a number. When the call connected, he spoke in a firm, commanding voice, Daniel, are you in a secure place? On the other end, Daniel shouted, Hank, is that you? He let out a sigh of relief. Where have you been for the last 4 days? You've been declared missing. Probably dead. Hank's voice turned colder, more urgent. Are you in a secure place or not? Feeling the intensity of Hank's voice, Daniel stuttered, Yes, I can talk freely. Hank took a deep breath. I'll send you my coordinates. I need you to get me out of here ASAP. Bring Dr. Montijo and make sure no one knows where I am. Tell Grandma I'm alive. Daniel agreed and jotted down the coordinates. I've got them, 46 degrees 52.3 3 degrees 16.67 You should be somewhere in Wolverton. We'll be there in about 2 hours. With that, Hank hung up, then returned to the tent, feeling feverish from the pain in his ankle. 2 hours later, Hank was struggling to stay awake from the fever. Suddenly, he heard the blades of a helicopter approaching. It drew closer, and through his blurry vision, he recognized 2 familiar figures walking toward him. His cousin Daniel and his personal doctor, Dr. Montijo. Dr. Montijo quickly administered a jab to Hank's thigh to prevent infection just as he lost consciousness. Back at the hotel where Chelsea had been staying, she felt restless. She couldn't shake the memories of the previous night from her mind. She entered the bathroom and stared into the mirror. This is it. Tomorrow is a new day, a new start, she resolved. Chelsea took a pair of scissors from the bathroom cabinet. Her long, curly black hair hung around 22 inches. Running her fingers through it, she said to herself, "Cutting my hair means starting fresh." With determination, she chopped off her hair around the nape of her neck. As she did, she smiled and said, "Goodbye, Ken." "Goodbye, Wolverton." She cleaned up the hair and walked to her room, dialing Rachel's number. When the call connected, Rachel answered enthusiastically. "Hey, baby girl. You're back already? Switch to video so I can see you." They switched to a video call, and when Rachel saw Chelsea's new look, she exclaimed, "Holy moly! Chels, what did you do to your hair? As much as I love your long curls, I adore this new bob look on you. You look like a femme fatale." Chelsea laughed softly. "I did love my long hair, but I had to let it go. You know it grows back fast anyway. My train leaves for London tomorrow, and I'll miss you so much." Tears threatened to spill from her eyes, and Rachel quickly interrupted. "No more crying. We're done with that, okay? So tell me, how was your time at the mountains? Did you have fun?" Chelsea grinned mischievously. "You won't believe what I saw up there. I met the most handsome man I've ever seen." She recounted everything that happened with the stranger in the mountains. When Rachel heard this, she let out a squeaky chuckle. "Baby girl. I hope you got his number." Chelsea frowned. "Why would I get his number? I'm done with men, love, and relationships." Rachel took a deep breath, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Chels, are you okay?" She really wanted to tell Chelsea that Ken had come looking for her and even confess that he was in love with her. Chelsea sensed that Rachel was about to share something important about Ken. "Rach, if it's about Ken, I don't want to hear it. He's my past now and I want him to stay there." Rachel nodded. "Understood." Two girls chatted for a while before saying goodbye. Chelsea then called Lionel to bid him farewell. The next day, Chelsea grabbed her suitcase and headed to the train station. Her journey to London marked the end of her difficult time in Wolverton. At the train entrance, she turned to look at the streets she would leave behind. "I'll make sure everyone who has hurt me in this city will pay one day," she said quietly before boarding the train. What awaits Chelsea in London? Will she adapt to the hustle and bustle of the new city? Back in London, Chelsea arrived at London Paddington International Train Station. It was the biggest and most beautiful train station she had ever seen. "Oh my goodness! This train station looks like an airport. The train station in Wolverton is still a million years behind this," she muttered, her eyes shimmering with amazement and excitement. Chelsea was about to enter a new era in her life. She pulled her two suitcases behind her and walked over to the taxi stop, where she hailed a cab to her new apartment. Her apartment was on the 6th floor, consisting of a small living room, a bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom. It wasn't a big place, but it was enough for her. When she stepped inside, she stood in the middle of the living room, lifted her head, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. Chels, this is it. The beginning of a new chapter. The old naive and stupid Chelsea is gone. She smiled and began unpacking her suitcases, putting her clothes away in the closet. The entire evening was spent settling in and getting acquainted with her new home. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the French window of her bedroom, gently waking her. She stretched lazily before walking over to open the window. Summer had already begun, and the weather was balmy, warm, bright, and inviting. She inhaled deeply, spread her arms, and shouted at the top of her voice, "Good morning, London!" Her voice echoed through the quiet alley below, drawing stares from passers-by. An old lady walking by glared up at her and shouted, "Shut up, you crazy woman! Get lost." Chelsea laughed softly and murmured to herself, "Well, well, well. This is London and its people. When you go to Rome, do what the Romans do. So when you come to London, you become a Londoner, innit?" Chuckling, she stepped into the bathroom for a quick shower. With 2 weeks to go before her first day at Kent Holdings as an intern, Chelsea decided to explore her neighborhood and the city center. It was about a 30-minute bus ride from her apartment. She dressed in a knee-length sky blue floral midi dress, paired it with a brown boho straw hat and brown sandals. She looked effortlessly elegant. "The weather is beautiful and I have to be beautiful," she said with a shy smile before stepping out. She wandered through various shops, indulging in some window shopping. Eventually, feeling tired and thirsty, she entered the Plaza, London's largest and most luxurious shopping mall. Inside, she found a stall selling freshly squeezed juices. She ordered a pineapple juice, only to be stunned by the price, £10. "Geez, even the juices here are so expensive," she muttered, frowning. Plaza was renowned for its high-end boutiques and luxury stores, frequented by the wealthy and influential, including celebrities. As she strolled through, admiring the dazzling displays of jewelry and designer outfits, she found herself drawn to a shop selling French couture and high-end fashion. She paused outside, lost in thought. Memories surfaced. Her mother had been a stylish, elegant woman with impeccable taste. When Chelsea was 6, her mother would take her shopping in Monte Carlo and Paris, introducing her to the world of high fashion. Snapping out of her reverie, she stepped inside. A shop attendant greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome to our store, ma'am. How may I assist you?" Chelsea returned the smile. "I'd like to look around first. If I need help, I'll let you know." The attendant nodded politely and stepped back. Chelsea wasn't there to shop, she simply wanted to relive a cherished part of her past. As she wandered through the racks, she ran her fingers over the fine fabrics, feeling their exquisite texture. A memory flashed in her mind. She saw herself as a little girl, standing beside her mother in Paul La Portia, France's most prestigious fashion house. "Hey, my little girl, when you grow up, always remember, your style is your identity. Never lower your standards for anyone. Be like your mama always, okay?" Little Chelsea had smiled up at her mother and replied, "Oui, maman." As she stood reminiscing, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, miss. Could you help me with something?" Turning, Chelsea found herself looking at a tall, well-dressed man, about 6 feet, wearing a brown stand-collar short-sleeve polo shirt and black trousers. He had a warm, polite demeanor. She smiled. "Greetings, sir. How can I help you?" The man smiled back. "I need help picking out a gift for someone special. I'm not very knowledgeable about women's fashion." Chelsea let out a soft chuckle. "All right, sir. Is this special person a young woman, middle-aged, or elderly? And what's her personal style like? Also, what does she do for a living, if I may ask? These details will help me choose something she'll love." The man gazed at her, clearly impressed. "She's an elderly woman in her 80s. She prefers simple, understated things, nothing flashy." Chelsea nodded thoughtfully. "All right, sir. Follow me and let's find something perfect for her." She led him to the scarves section. "Do you know her favorite color?" she asked. The man hesitated, then said, "She loves bright colors." Chelsea scanned the selection and picked out a feather-light cashmere scarf in dark pink, white, and gray. She handed it to him. "This is stylish yet simple. It exudes class, confidence, and elegance. I think she'll love it." His eyes lit up with joy. "Thank you so much, miss. I really appreciate your help." Chelsea smiled, nodded, and waved goodbye before walking away. The man lingered for a moment, watching her leave. Shaking his head slightly, he turned toward the cashier to pay for the scarf. By the time Chelsea got home, she was exhausted. After a warm shower and a quick meal, she settled onto the couch to watch a show. As she reached for her neck absent-mindedly, a sudden realization hit her. Her necklace was gone. Panic surged through her. "Oh my goodness! Where is my necklace?" Her mind raced, trying to remember the last time she had felt it around her neck. It had been days. She rushed to her bedroom, frantically tearing through her suitcases, but it was nowhere to be found. No, no, no. I can't believe I lost Daddy's necklace. He warned me never to lose it. Tears welled in her eyes and she collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Meanwhile, 2 weeks had passed since Hank returned home. His leg had improved significantly, but doctors had advised him to avoid putting too much pressure on it. Sitting by his bedroom window, he read the morning newspaper, his usual routine. This time, however, most of his work was being handled remotely. A knock on the door interrupted him. Daniel walked in. "Hey H, hope you're feeling better this morning." Hank and Daniel weren't just cousins, they had been best friends since childhood. Unlike Hank, who was cold and aloof, Daniel was warm, kind, and easygoing. "And what are you doing here this early? Don't you have a company to run?" Hank asked dryly. Daniel, unfazed by his cousin's gruffness, smirked as he sat down across from him. "H, tell me what really happened on that mountain. I know you were with a girl. Come on, man, you finally made out with someone on a mountain. Don't even try to deny it, there's evidence." Hank's sharp gaze darkened. "What the hell are you talking about? Who made out with who?" Daniel chuckled. "Well, you asked me to keep the floral scarf and necklace safe. Plus, we found a black lacy thong in your tent. So, whether you were with a woman or are you telling me you wore it?" Hank's glare turned deadly. "Get out before I throw you out the window," he warned. Daniel grinned but knew better than to push his luck. All right. I'm leaving." "The door," he smirked. "By the way, the thong is with the other items." Laughing, he stuck out his tongue and dashed out. Hank shook his head with a small smirk. "He's as crazy as that girl. Who is Hank? And how did he end up on Mount Halo?" Hank sat in his room, lost in thought, reminiscing about everything that had happened on Mount Halo in Wolverton. "Why can't I shake that mountain fairy from my mind? I see her face every time I close my eyes. It must be the side effects of the drugs Dr. Montejo gave me." Henry Fitzwilliam, also known as Hank by his grandmother and cousin Daniel, was the richest billionaire in the United Kingdom. His company, the Fitzwilliam Group, was not only a leader in the UK but also among the top 5 companies in the world. Hank was a force to be reckoned with, capable of making a business vanish with the snap of his fingers. He was not just a powerful tycoon, he was also ruthless to anyone who dared cross him. In the cutthroat world of business, he was omnipotent, known for reviving even the deadest of companies. The many feared and respected him. He rarely socialized, leaving only a handful of executives familiar with him in person. Most knew him by name alone. Hank took over his father's struggling company at the age of 21, shortly after his father had filed for bankruptcy following a disastrous deal with their foreign partners. They had been swindled, losing everything to Vercel Corp, their top rival. Freshly graduated from Oxford University, Hank stepped in to revive the company. Took blood, sweat, and tears, but he would not abandon the Fitzwilliam Group. He vowed he would get his revenge on Vercel Corporation. 8 years later, he transformed the company into one of the world's top 5 most successful firms. When anyone heard the name Fitzwilliam Group, they thought of power, money, and fame. Hank went on to establish numerous subsidiary companies, even creating one for his cousin Daniel, who he appointed as CEO. Hank was the dream of every woman, yet he paid no attention to those who threw themselves at him. Standing 6 feet 4 inches tall, he had a striking presence. His well-toned physique indicated a serious commitment to fitness, while his mesmerizing blue eyes contrasted beautifully with his light-toned face. He was flawless, and he knew it, practically a demigod. 2 weeks ago, he had traveled to Greenville, a city adjacent to Wolverton, to launch a new branch of the Fitzwilliam Group. Only Hank, his loyal personal assistant Gina, and his cousin Daniel knew his itinerary for their 2 days in Greenville. After the launch and ribbon-cutting ceremony, they held an after-party. Hank was meticulous about everything he did and always cautious with what he ate and drank. Unfortunately, on that night, he felt tired and overworked. His therapy was running, so he donned his jogging pants and a hoodie and called Gina. When she arrived at his room, he said, "Gina, I'm going for a quick run. Stay here and handle everything. I'll be back in an hour." Gina, in her black suit, nodded, responding, "Sure, boss. Be careful out there." She knew Hank could defend himself even without her. He was a Kyuden, a ninth-degree black belt in Taekwondo. This was equivalent to an assistant grandmaster. Gina was no slouch either. She was a skilled fighter and always ready to protect him. As the only female able to walk beside Hank, she understood him well. As Hank stepped out of the hotel, he began his run. Through about 20 minutes, he sensed he was being followed. Hank had a talent for reading both people and his environment, so he quickened his pace and veered into the nearby woods. It was dark, and he couldn't make out the faces of those tailing him. He ducked behind a tree and counted at least 15 figures encircling him. He realized that hiding wouldn't resolve the situation. He had to fight. Hank emerged and engaged all 15, and he quickly discovered that they were skilled fighters as well. Weakened after such a battle, he prepared to head back to the hotel, only to see that more pursuers were now closing in on him, and they were numbers. It dawned on him that they were tracking him through his phone. He speed-dialed Gina, but just as she was about to answer, someone knocked the phone from his hand. Left with no choice, he fought off his attackers. Ultimately drained, he took a chance and sprinted through the forest. Luck was on his side. He managed to shake them off. But after trekking for a long time, he was exhausted. By morning, he found himself on the outskirts of Wolverton seeking help. He encountered an elderly couple living in a small bush house. "Greetings, ma'am. Can you please help me?" The elderly couple stared at him as if they didn't understand. "Do you, by chance, have a mobile phone I could borrow?" The old man finally chimed in, "Greetings, young man. We do have an old phone, but it's not charged. We hardly use it, we prefer letters and post offices." They were unfamiliar with modern technology. Hank offered £100 note for the phone, and with a smile the old man handed it over, grateful for the exchange. Hank was determined to reach Gina. Unfortunately, the henchmen pursuing him tracked him to Wolverton, and he realized he needed to lose them again. He knew it would be tough for them to spot him in the mountain areas, which led him to Mount Halo. While climbing, he slipped on the wet ground and twisted his ankle. After waiting a day with his injury, he felt hopeless. No one passed by. Then, that fateful afternoon, he heard Chelsea singing as she approached the waterfall. Finally, someone. When he drew closer to see who it was, he was taken aback by her beauty. "Is this girl a spirit? The epitome of beauty, what is she doing here all alone?" he whispered to himself. This was the first time in a long while that a woman had captured Hank's attention. He followed her and watched from a distance as she swam, taking note of how her lush black hair shimmered in the water. He absorbed every word she said. When she finished and began walking back, he quickly hopped back and sat on a tree trunk, hoping to conceal himself. As she approached, Hank mustered the courage to ask for her help. While speaking with her, he couldn't help but admire her lovely features, particularly the mole on her upper lip. When she suggested taking him to her tent, his heart leapt with joy. When she kissed him back in her tent for the first time in his life, he blushed. That night, when she fell asleep and he carried her back to her tent, she asked him not to leave her. He didn't understand why he felt a strange ache in his heart or why he felt compelled to protect her at all costs. The next day, when he awoke to find her gone, he felt an unshakable disappointment. Who is this girl? Where can I find her? Oh gosh, why am I so invested in her? Hank pondered. Then suddenly, he saw a glittering necklace at the corner of the tent. He remembered seeing it on Chelsea's neck. He picked it up and put it in his pocket. Now back in the present, Hank sat at the dining table in his penthouse, having dinner with his grandmother and Daniel. "Hey, Nana," he greeted with a warm smile. He looked even more handsome when he smiled, his dimples accentuating his charm. He was Grandma Julia's favorite grandson, loved most for his pure heart and kindness. After his father's bankruptcy, his father fell ill from shock and died 2 years later. Something else also happened which changed Hank completely. He became cold and distant and avoided public events, trusting only his cousin Daniel, his grandmother Julia, and his personal assistant Gina. "Hanky, my sweet boy," Grandma Julia said, approaching him for a hug. "How are you feeling now, dear child? And who are those crazy people who did this to you?" Concern filled her eyes. Hank smiled and replied, "Nana, don't worry. I'm fine. As for those who did this, we will hunt them down soon." As a successful business tycoon, Hank had innumerable competitors and enemies. Grandma sat down, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Hanky, I'm getting old. I've told you countless times to get married and give me great-grandchildren. But you're so stubborn. Even the blind dates I set up, you never show up. Let me ask you this, are you gay? Just tell me if you are." Daniel, who had been silent, suddenly spat his drink, almost choking. "Oh, please, Nana. This grandson of yours can't be gay. He was with a girl in the mountains. They even made out." Daniel spoke as if Hank wasn't even in the room. Hank shot him a glare that could silence a crowd. Daniel sat in silence, pretending nothing had happened, but inside, he felt a mix of concern and amusement at Hank's situation. "Grandma," Hank interjected, "why are you so bent on me getting married? I'm not the only grandchild. You have Daniel too. Why this relentless focus on me?" At his words, Grandma Julia's eyes sparkled with mischief and delight, as if she had just found a treasure. "Oh, Hanky, who is she? When were you planning to introduce her to me?" With a playful slap to the back of his head, she added, "Don't forget you're the oldest grandchild. And look at Daniel. He already has a girlfriend. But you're as single as a solitary Pringle." A teasing smile danced on her lips, emphasizing her excitement. "Ouch, Nana, that hurts." Hank laughed, rubbing the back of his head, trying to suppress a grin. But then the weight of his thoughts came crashing back. "Nana, I genuinely don't know where to find her. I don't even know her name. All I know is that she called herself the Mountain Fairy." As he recounted the whole whirlwind experience of his encounter with Chelsea, Hank felt a stirring of emotions. He narrated his initial attraction, the way she had moved effortlessly through the water, her laughter harmonizing with the sound of the waterfall, and how her beauty had captivated him in a way he had never felt before. When he finished, he looked up to see both Daniel and Grandma Julia absorbed in his story. Daniel's expression shifted from surprise to empathy. "Listen, H," he said softly, a hint of determination in his voice. "I'll do everything I can to help you find her, okay?" He could feel the pressure weighing on his cousin's shoulders, the pressure of wealth, expectations, and the fears of loneliness and loss. Hank, who had been wearing a sullen expression, finally nodded in appreciation. "Thanks, Dee. It means a lot." As the conversation continued, Grandma Julia leaned closer, her curiosity piqued. "What else can you tell me about this mountain fairy? What does she look like? What did she say? It sounds like a fairy tale." Her eyes sparkled with excitement, and Hank couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. "She had these lush, long black hair that flowed like a waterfall itself, and her voice, my God, it was like music," Hank said, lost in thought. "Every word she spoke seemed to pull me in closer, as if she had a spell over me. I never thought I could feel this way about someone I barely knew." "Sounds like you are already enchanted," Daniel teased, but there was sincerity behind his jest. "Maybe we can turn this into an adventure. Picture it, Henry Fitzwilliam, the great billionaire, searching for his mountain fairy." "You should start a treasure hunt," Grandma Julia chimed in with delight. "Create a grand search. You could explore every corner of Wolverton and beyond, with the whole world rooting for you to find her. Just look at this, if my dear Hank can't find love, then who can?" Her laughter filled the room and the atmosphere brightened. As the three of them brainstormed ideas, Daniel felt a lingering sense of determination. He wanted to help his cousin, not just for the thrill of the chase but because Hank deserved happiness. How about this? I'll contact some of my friends in the area. They might have heard rumors about her or have connections we can tap into. We could even make a social media post or two. Who knows? Maybe the mountain fairy herself might see it. Hank's brows furrowed in thought. That could actually work. If we can gather information, we can start piecing together her story and maybe we can track her down. The prospect of a quest ignited a flicker of hope within him, a feeling he hadn't realized he missed. As Grandma Julia clapped her hands in excitement, a plan began to take shape. We'll need to set up a timeline of the night you met her, write down everything about that day and even the smallest detail you remember, Hank. Every bit could lead us closer to her. Who knows? The mountain fairy may just need a nudge to find her way back to you. A warmth blossomed in Hank's chest. With his family's support, the impossible seemed attainable. I appreciate this, both of you. I just hope we can find her. There's something about her, a spark that I can't quite put into words, but I feel it deep down. I want to understand it. Will Daniel succeed in helping his favorite cousin find Chelsea? And what will happen when he realizes that the very woman who had assisted him at the mall is the same woman his cousin has been so desperately searching for? The unfolding adventure promises to be anything but ordinary and filled with unexpected twists. To what happens next on your favorite audio series Unappreciated Treasure, keep listening to find out.